All right.
So you remember in chapter 6, we talked about the seal judgments, and we opened 6 of them in chapter 6, but we never did open the number 7. So we waited for number 7 to come, and we figured that it would happen in chapter 7, but it didn't. Instead, in chapter 7, there was a break, and God instead decided to seal his 144,000 Jews to protect them against anything that might come to harm. And those 144,000 Jews went out preaching, and they brought multitudes to Jesus. So that was chapter 7. Finally, in chapter 8, the 7th seal was opened. And that 7th seal, all that it did was open a new set of judgments, and that was the trumpet judgments. So I'm going to go right to chapter 10, verse 1. I saw still another mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was on his head. His face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. So this angel has a lot of authority. In fact, he has the authority of God so that he can speak on God's behalf. And when he came down, he put 1 foot on the ocean and 1 foot on land. You see this in a lot of movies where the captain of a ship comes, they come to a new land, his people row him out, and he gets off of the boat, and he puts 1 foot on land and 1 foot on sea. And his job at that point is to declare that land for his king. This is the same thing this angel is doing. He's declaring the earth for God. This is God's land. So then he's clothed with a cloud. If you remember right, when Moses came down, when Moses met God on Mount Sinai, God came in a cloud. When Jesus was taken up to heaven, he left in a cloud. He is to come back in a cloud. So the cloud is a symbol of God. His face shone like the sun. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, his face shone like the sun. Jesus' face shone like the sun when he came back to earth after he was taken up to heaven. So this angel had been in the presence of God. His feet were like pillars of fire. If you remember, Jesus, in I think it was chapter 5, had feet that were like fine brass. This represents conquering. And so, anyway, in Revelation 10:2, he had a little book open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea, and we talked about the right and left foot, but he had a little book in his hand. Now, what could this book be? In 10:3, he cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. When he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. This angel is not Jesus, although he's speaking the way that Jesus would, with a loud voice and as a lion. So he is telling everyone that he has the authority of God, and he's speaking as Jesus would. Jesus was the Lion of Judah. This angel is not, but he's speaking as Jesus. And then there were 7 thunders uttered from heaven. This is God speaking. God is often mentioned, when God speaks, it's often like thunder. In verse 10:4, Now when the seven thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up the things which the seven thunders uttered, and do not write them down. So John heard what the seven thunders said. He understood them because he was about to write them down. But the seven thunders told him, don't write it down. We have no idea what these words were, but it's probably something that we would not be able to comprehend. I mean, thunder is a symbol of God's wrath, and that what he utters will probably be followed up with divine judgment. So apparently God did not want us to hear this because we would not understand it. We don't know that. And there's a little article in here by a fellow, Oliver Green, who is a biblical scholar. And he says, already set before us are blood, tears, famine, heartache, and heartbreak, killing, misery, hail, fire, burning mountains, demon monstrosities, men begging to die and unable to do so. She made faces in chapter 6. This is just a brief synopsis of what we've heard about so far. Surely what John was forbidden to write must have been beyond human imagination and understanding. So, this gets better, and it's even better in chapter 11. In Revelation 10, 5 and 6, the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on land raised up his hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, and the sea and the things that are in it, that there should be no delay any longer. So, if you remember back in chapter 6, the tribulation saints said, how long, O Lord, do we have to wait for you to avenge us? And God told them to wait until more of their number were killed and brought to heaven as well as them. Well, they waited, and we're all the way up here to almost chapter 11, and the waiting is over. When this happened, it signifies the end of the waiting. It's now time for the rest of the story, the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. So Revelation 10:7, but in the days of the sounding of the seventh angel, when he is about to sound, the mystery of God would be finished, as he declared to his servants, the prophets. So now all 7 seals are open, and all of the angels have sounded their trumpets. The last trumpet will bring about a bowl, which are the 7 bowl trumpets. So we're toward the end of the book of Revelation. When those 7 bowl judgments are finished, it's over with, and it signals the beginning of the millennium. There are a whole lot of mysteries revealed in the Bible. And, I'm not going to read all these things to you, but first we have the mystery of the rapture. You'll find this in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 51. For those of you here who would like to read that, the mystery of Israel's blindness. Romans 11, verse 25. The mystery of God's wisdom. 1 Corinthians 2, verse 7. The mystery of Christ in the church. Ephesians 5, verses 31 through 32. The mystery of Christ in us. Colossians 1, 26 and 27. The mystery of the kingdom of heaven. That's the entire chapter 13 of the book of Matthew. the mystery of godliness, 1 Timothy 3:16. The only reason I bring these things up is there are people talking with me that say, where do these things come from? This is all prophecy coming true in the book of Revelation, and it's referenced way back in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. Now, you told me last week that what I preached about didn't matter. You know what? Usually when I do preach, I give Carla a title, and Carla tells me what verses to pick. This didn't happen last week. She asked me what the title was. I told her the title, and I never even read what the verses were. I still don't know what the verses were. All right, so in verse 8, chapter 10, verse 8, then the voice which I heard from heaven spoke to me again and said, go, take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel who stands on the sea and on the earth. So John goes to the angel and says, give me the book. And the angel hands him the book. And I'm going to read the next verse. So I went to the angel and said to him, give me the little book. And he said to me, take it and eat it. And it will make your stomach bitter, but it will taste as sweet as honey in your mouth. This to me, that one verse, to me, is a major part of the entire Bible. Because, okay, let me say it this way. Everybody's going to be happy when Satan is bound and sent to the abyss. Am I right? But we don't want to have to go through all the blood and sweat and tears on the way to that point. So it's sweet that Satan is going to be there, but it's bitter on the way to get to that point. So it tastes sweet in your mouth. The answer is sweet in your mouth, but the process is bitter. And that's pretty much what this whole thing is saying. And, you know, it's like that for us. If we're going to be God's people, we have to go to the bookshelf and take the book off the shelf. We have to read the book. Not only do we have to read the book, but we have to talk to people that are smarter than us to explain to us what this book is saying. Because it's very hard to understand the words in this book. Anyway, so I'm going to go now to verse 10. Then I took the little book out of the angel's hand and I ate it, and it was as sweet as honey in my mouth. But when I had eaten it, my stomach became bitter. This is not the first time somebody has eaten something. Ezekiel ate the words of God. Jeremiah ate a scroll from God. What this is meaning is that these words don't just resonate in your head, but they actually go into your heart. So what you read in the Bible goes to your heart. And he said to me, this is verse 11, you must prophesy again about many people, nations, tongues, and things. So from here on, in the last 3.5 years of the Revelation, this is what John does. He goes out and talks to the people. Now, the next chapter is chapter 11. Chapter 11 is really good too. It doesn't open anymore. It doesn't open any of the bowls. But what it talks about is John actually becomes a doer instead of a listener. He's actually doing things. And if you remember, the Antichrist will not be revealed his true identity until he makes a covenant for peace with Israel and the rest of the world. This covenant is revealed in chapter 11. So when this happens, what we're about to learn about in chapter 11, you will know who the Antichrist actually is, his true identity. He was originally introduced by the first horse in chapter 6, the first seal. well, actually it was the first seal. When the white horse came out with the arrow, with the bow, but no arrows, that was the introduction of the Antichrist. But we will actually know who it is when in chapter 11 he makes this covenant. And chapter 11 actually explains what the covenant is. So anyway, this is chapter 10 of the book of Revelation. It should be longer than this, but I lost all my notes overnight. But this explains it very well. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'm Chuck, and my email is weddingmeister@aol.com. Thank you.